We're just breaking into, Kristen, there, just to go straight to the White House. President Biden is talking about these college protests. Let's listen in.
Two fundamental American principles, excuse me. The first is the right to free speech and for people to peacefully assemble and make their voices heard. The second is the rule of law. Both must be upheld. We are not an authoritarian nation where we silence people or squash dissent. The American people are heard. In fact, peaceful protest is in the best tradition of how Americans respond to consequential issues. But, neither are we a lawless country. We are a civil society, and order must prevail. Throughout our history, we've often faced moments like this because we are a big, diverse, free-thinking, and freedom-loving nation. In moments like this, there are always those who rush in to score political points. But this isn't a moment for politics. It's a moment for clarity. So let me be clear. Peaceful protest in America. Violent protest is not protected. Peaceful protest is. It's against the law when violence occurs. Destroying property is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Vandalism, trespassing, breaking windows, shutting down campuses, forcing the cancellation of classes and graduations. None of this is a peaceful protest. Threatening people, intimidating people, instilling fear in people is not a peaceful protest. It's against the law. Dissent is essential to democracy, but dissent must never lead to disorder or to denying the rights of others so students can finish the semester and their college education. Look, it's basically a matter of fairness. It's a matter of what's right. There's the right to protest, but not the right to cause chaos. People have the right to get an education, the right to get a degree, the right to walk across the campus safely without fear of being attacked. But let's be clear about this as well. There should be no place on any campus, no place in America for anti-Semitism or threats of violence against Jewish students. There is no place for hate speech or violence of any kind, whether it's anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or discrimination against Arab Americans or Palestinian Americans. It's simply wrong. There's no place for racism in America. It's all wrong. It's un-American. I understand people have strong feelings and deep convictions. In America, we respect the right and protect the right for them to express that. But it doesn't mean anything goes. It needs to be done without violence, without destruction, without hate, and within the law. You know, make no mistake, as president, I will always defend free speech, and I will always be just as strong in standing up for the rule of law. That's my responsibility to you, the American people, and my obligation to the Constitution. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, have the protests forced you to reconsider any of the policies with regard to the region?
No. Thank you.
Mr. President, do you think the National Guard should intervene?
No.
Mr. President,
Do you agree with what the students are calling for?
Mr. President, the former president said that
You are watching Al Jazeera English, and that was perhaps one of the shortest speeches we've ever seen from Joe Biden when he takes to the lectern, refusing to take questions over whether state troopers or the National Guard should be called in to close down these camps that have popped up at various universities across the US. He said free speech was a fundamental right, as was the rule of law. We are not an authoritarian state, but protest can and protest will not be quashed, but dissent will. So we are a civil society. We're free thinking, a freedom-loving nation. And we went on as well to talk about the fact that everybody has the right to protest, but not to cause chaos. Let's go live to our White House correspondent, Kimberly Halkett. Kimberly, I think you were listening into all of that just as much as the rest of us. We've been waiting for the president to say something, and he did touch on something that he said it shouldn't be politicised. And I'm just wondering whether he was trying to allude to comments being made by his presidential rival.
Absolutely. There's no question that that's exactly what he was trying to do. The U.S. President Joe Biden has been under pressure, not just by his rival in the upcoming election, presidential election, former President Donald Trump, but also from the American public, who have been wondering why he has been absent as these nationwide protests grow across college campuses. There have been comments from the National Security Council spokesperson, the deputy press secretary, the press secretary, all saying pretty much what the U.S. president said just now, that these protests are not within the law, that the White House supports the right to free speech, the right to protest and to organize, and freedom of assembly. But what they don't support is for there to be protests that are not lawful. In other words, preventing others from being able to go to school, from being able to feel safe, etc. But what the U.S. president did just now is distance himself from the comments made by former President Donald Trump, who tried to characterize these protests as something more than just a protest of U.S. President Joe Biden's policies and his support of Israel. What the former president has done is characterized these protests as being something of a nature of the political and radical left. Take a listen.
Just so you understand, this is the radical left. This is a movement from the left, not from the right. The right is not your problem. Despite what law enforcement likes to say, the FBI director said that he worries about the right. Now, don't worry about the right. The right's fine. Worry about the left, because this is a movement from the left. These are radical left lunatics. And they got to be stopped now, because it's going to go on, and it's going to get worse and worse. And, you know, they take over countries, okay? And we're not letting them take over the USA. We're not letting the radical left morons take over this country.
Radical left lunatics, radical left morons. I mean, this is now finding its way into that political conversation, Kimberly, but it's how it makes, you might say, political capital for either of these two candidates as they head towards that November poll.
That's right. And the problem is both of them are making some big mistakes here. You heard Donald Trump vilifying the radical left there. The name calling never works. But the other problem here is that Joe Biden had an opportunity, as we heard him speaking just moments ago, as he addressed the protests that are taking place across college campuses. You heard one of the reporters there asking, will these demonstrations in any way make you rethink your policy? The answer was no. Not even a hesitation or a qualification. It was no. And that's what could have changed these or quelled this violence or even some of this disruption. The fact that he was not willing to budge on that is also going to be a problem for the president, because he needs these young people in order to win re-election. And the problem for this president is he's trailing former President Donald Trump in a lot of these battleground states. Given the fact that this could be a tight election in November, that could be very much the thing that he needs in order to win another term in the White House. So the U.S. president sitting in the White House right now has a problem, and so far he has not changed his tact.
Indeed, it seems the political traction is just around the corner. For the moment, Kimberly, thanks very much for your insight.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.